10:03. This is this is what I was thinking what we'll do for today. We'll learn until about 10 minutes or 5 minutes to the hour, and then I wanted to check in about some ideas moving forward. So we'll learn first, okay? And so those of us who were here last week know that I'm gonna know that we left off at the end with studying Akedah Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac. And so we'll pick up immediately after that, at the beginning of Parshat Chayei Sarah. We're on page 127 in the Eitz Chaim, or if you're not in the Eitz Chaim, it's Genesis chapter 23, verse 1, the beginning of Parshat Chayei Sarah. Okay.
JPS is page 41.
Thank you, JPS Tanakh, page 41. And so this is
127.
127. 1, 2, 7.
Which chapter?
23. Yeah. Okay. And what I think we'll try to do today is we'll cover the contents of two parshas, Chayei Sarah and Toldot. The reason why I'm thinking about doing it that way is because it gives us a little bit of an overview. Now we're building our family tree. So let's start rather at the beginning of Parshat Chayei Sarah, chapter 23, verse 1. We have here in the Eitz Chaim, the first heading is the cave of Machpelah. And so that's kind of interesting because it's the first land purchase in the Torah. There's a lot to explore there. And Abraham negotiates with Ephron about the price of the burial plot and this and that. And so the parsha begins with the death of Sarah, and the parsha ends with the death of Abraham. So when we get to Parshat Toldot, the next parsha, it's really all about Isaac. And so these two parshas are kind of the core of the story about Isaac. Now that he's survived being bound and almost sacrificed, but he's going to do some other stuff too. So that's my overall map of what we're doing today. Any questions before we begin? Good. So, okay, so we have the Cave of Machpelah, chapter 23, verses 1 through 20. Abraham buys the burial plot. It's, the thing about this is that Abraham pays for it. Ephron is like, you can have it for free. Abraham is like, I'm going to pay for it because I want it to definitely be mine. And so we see the core of that, chapter 23, verse 16. Abraham accepted Ephron's terms. Abraham paid out to Ephron the money that he had named in the hearing of the Hittites, 400 shekels of silver at the going merchant's rate. Therefore, the land was his because he bought it. Smart.
And it was very careful and meticulous about it. He made sure he had witnesses and the whole thing.
Absolutely. Yes, it's
he knew what he was doing.
Right, absolutely. And trying to be clear about whose land it was and how this is fair and how this is all very above board. It's, echoes of our current situation and its challenges, right? But there we are. I'm not sure I have any other grand insights.
Well, there are referrals back to I think we discussed this. When did we discuss this? Because there are referrals back to this this incident when we were discussing the half shekel. That was it. They had when they discussed the half shekel in Kitisa. Didn't we just talk about it in Minyan? And then they refer back to the to this. Yes, it was because I remember bringing it up, and there's a referral in Kitisa back here.
Ooh, Yashikoa, very nice. Well, we will take that piece of Torah and hold it gently and lovingly, and also remember that we are focusing here on the book of Genesis and remembering how one of the key reasons to study the book of Genesis, I think, as illustrated exactly by this example, is that it touches on a lot of other pieces of stuff. So we have this idea of the shekel, we have the half shekel coming up later, we have the shekel of our modern times, and it's all great. So
it's interesting that the word shekel is, I think, we still use that monetary term.
Oh yeah,
cool,
absolutely.
We haven't changed. I mean, it's not, it hasn't, hasn't changed in all these centuries.
Isn't it beautiful that we have our resurrected language?
I could be
Yes.
mistaken, but even shekel appears in the Merchant of Venice.
Really?
I think.
I have to check.
That is outside the canon that I'm most familiar with.
I'm not sure, but
I don't remember. Yeah.
Okay.
That is a
I love it. I love it. Okay, okay. So Merchant of Venice, shekels, we've got this. Okay. So speaking of shekels, we need a wife for Isaac. We need a wife for Isaac because we need more Jews. Go Team Jews. So a wife for Isaac, chapter 24, starting with verse 1. Now Abraham is old. He's been blessed by God, which is great. His wife has died, which of course is sad. And he has his son, his favorite son, his special heir. And now it is time to get him a wife. So that is the next project. So Abraham sends his servant to go get the wife. Okay, then there's this whole thing about how are you going to find this woman? How are you going to know? Take the oath, promise me you won't mess this up, blah, blah, blah. The camels drinking the water of the camel. But this is the part where I wanted to really bring us, which is not a part that necessarily gets highlighted a lot. So this is page 134 in the Eitz Chaim, chapter 24, verse 29, really. So it says, now Rebecca had a brother whose name was Laban or Lavan in Hebrew. So now we're getting into kind of the family tree, and I'm like, I wish I had more of a whiteboard set up. Maybe that's too much tech for right now. So we have Abraham. No, where did it go? No, hold on, I gotta rewind back. Okay, sorry, rewind back to chapter 24, verse 15. So he, meaning the servant who was looking for the wife, he scarcely finished speaking when Rebecca, who was born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor, came out with her jar on her shoulder. Okay, so Rebecca is related to Abraham. And so Rebecca is related to Isaac. So these relationships, so they're marrying within their extended family, which is interesting.
Which was okay at that time, right?
Totally. And actually, this is why it was so amazing to last year have learned the book of Genesis with 9th graders, and now I get to learn it with all of you, because this whole thing about marrying one's relatives is, doesn't go over so smoothly with the 9th graders of today. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, but wait a minute, it's a cousin.
No, but it's still, no.
First cousin.
Yeah.
First cousin.
My husband's parents
Let her continue.
were first cousins.
First cousin?
No.
Sometimes
Yeah,
it was.
I had an aunt and uncle who were first cousins. I used to tease my aunt that she just wanted to keep the last name Goodkin, but they had to leave Illinois and go to Kentucky to get married way back.
Oh,
Goodkin is the name in our
Yeah.
family.
So yeah, no, it's not, and there is mental illness in the family.
That's it.
Oh, no.
And
It creates all sorts of genetic problems.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In a good way, and in some country songs, they're called kissing
Well,
cousins.
Yeah, but that's low down.
So cousin
That's much
marriage
lower down.
is currently legal in the state of California.
Really?
Yes, it
Cousin
is.
marriage is also currently legal in the nation
Yes,
of
it is.
Israel.
Really?
But
Fun
it was
fact,
it was
the 9th graders and
legal
probably
in
some
New
of us are
York.
like a little bit.
They got married in New York.
Absolutely. So marrying one's first cousin is something that is encouraged in some cultures. It's discouraged in other cultures. It's legal in some places. It's not legal in other places, but it is fascinating, and it is definitely happening throughout the book of Genesis, especially in these generations of our matriarchs and patriarchs. So things get a little bit different when, a little bit later in the book of Genesis, when we end up with the 12 sons and the 12 tribes, and then there's a lot more genetic diversity happening, but now not so much. So a fascinating thing to keep in mind. Okay, so Rebecca is born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor. So Rebecca and Isaac are, correct me if I'm wrong, first cousins.
Full first cousins.
Full first cousins. Okay, so then we have Rebecca's brother on page 134, chapter 24, verse 29. Rebecca had a brother whose name was Lavan. So Lavan, of course, let's remember him, or not, yeah, I mean, he's part of the family. It's complicated. Lavan is very complicated. He was definitely not a great guy, but he's also part of the family, and what are we really gonna do? So let's definitely remember that for later. Okay, so, okay.
Oh, how modern, she had a nose
The
ring.
means white.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Fashionista and this part, so we definitely have nose rings appearing later on in the Torah as well. So here we go. We definitely, I mean, decorations for the face, always a cultural thing. Okay, so let's see. Let's keep going. I think. Oh, here's the next thing that I really wanted to point out. We've got the drinking, the water, the camels. The story is repeated a couple of times, which is something that happens in Torah. But this blessing here, chapter 24, verse 60.
60?
60. This is a chapter with many verses in it. Verse 60 is not even the last verse in the chapter, but this blessing is part of at least some of the marriage rituals in Jewish tradition. O sister, may you grow into thousands of myriads. May your offspring seize the gates of their foes. We still bless brides with this blessing in Jewish tradition today, which I think is really cool. Yeah, we're harkening back to the book of Genesis. Yeah. Oh yeah, and actually, so we have a note about that, the below the line commentary in the Eitz Chaim. These words are used today at the veiling of the bride, Yiddish Bedecken, that customarily precedes the Jewish wedding ceremony. So I'm not sure about all facets of Jewish culture, but definitely the tradition of the conservative movement does this blessing.
What does it mean? May your offspring inherit the gate of its foes?
Oh, so the translation, we love these questions, and this is why we have different translations around the table, because it's very interesting. This translation is, may your offspring seize the gates of their foes. But by Yurash Zaracha et Sha'ar Snoav. Oh, Sonav rather. So this is basically like you're going to conquer your enemy and get all their territory and all their stuff. Okay.
Boy, you were.
Heck yeah.
That's very,
yes,
very
we
martial.
got this blessing?
Well,
I like the way you said it.
Did I get this blessing?
And what did Lee do about it?
Well, I'm looking back to see.
No, he was
every
supposed to.
foe. Nice
That was a litigator.
So it looks like Rebecca's mother and Rebecca's nurse, and maybe her brother. Rebecca's family is giving her this blessing before she goes off to go live with. Because the other thing is, and I guess we can turn back and
the nurse goes with her.
This.
Yeah, the nurse goes with her. I remembered that.
The nurse goes with her.
Yeah,
yes,
the nurse accompanies her.
Sister Rebecca and her nurse. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for that correction. I appreciate that. What I was going to say, rewinding back to chapter 24, verse 37. Now my master made me swear, saying, you shall not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites in whose land I dwell, but you shall go to my father's house, to my kindred, and get a wife for my son. So the servant traveled to go find Rebecca, and now Rebecca has to travel back and go move to live somewhere else. So that's just like the parting blessing.
You know what I always found interesting about this is she accedes immediately to this proposition that she's going to go and marry Isaac. I mean, she's leaving everything she knows, and you know, we always think of Isaac. We never, you know, think of Isaac as
she wants to get away from her brother.
That's exactly, Jonathan. That's
sorry,
Jonathan. No.
I like this.
Jonathan, that's exactly what I was going to say next.
You were sharing a thought.
She's not. I think she's willing to give up this chaperone, well, not chaperone, this being under her brother. She's off for adventure. I mean, we understand Rebecca right away. Rebecca's willing to take on a lot. So when
and I think we'll see that in the next parsha too.
Yeah,
this is, you know, we haven't really tried to cover so much.
We're putting, I think, right away we put a lot on her.
Well, she's also willing to take on a lot, so we'll hold on to that, and we'll see that more in a second. Okay, so we have Rebecca and Isaac, and so let's just look at this because I think it's sweet and I can't really pass it up. So chapter 24, verse 67. Isaac then brought her into the tent of his mother Sarah, and he took Rebecca as his wife. Isaac loved her and thus found comfort after his mother's death.
Rabbi Wallach never performed a wedding ceremony without that quote.
Oh.
Every wedding ceremony,
Mhm,
Rabbi
mhm.
Wallach used that quote
Aw,
in the wedding
that's
ceremony.
beautiful. That's so
Um,
nice.
Was about Isaac and Rebecca.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so this, so building on that, this comment in the time, it's also in the JPS Torah commentary that Jonathan has over there. Above the line, it's the Dibur HaMatchil, the starting word is loved her. So the first reference to love in the Bible, 22 verse 2, that was in the middle of the Akedah, concerned the tie between parent and child. This is the second reference to love, and it relates to the bond between husband and wife, which is just like,
Yeah,
love is nice. Love is a little bit elusive, but we love love. You know?
So this is the
Yeah,
Valentine's
that's
Day
true.
quote.
This is the Valentine's Day. Yes, Tu B'Av, Valentine's Day, whichever holiday of love you're going for. Yeah, now I'm thinking like cards. Anyways, bring it in, bring it on.
Hallmark, a Hallmark
A
moment.
money
It's a Hallmark
maker.
moment. Let's do
Yeah,
this.
fun
This would be a good quote in a card, though.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
know,
On the
it's like,
bottom,
yeah.
like that.
Okay, the idea started here. This is like
That is a
where it
good
all began.
fundraiser. I'd buy them.
I love it.
Yes, I would totally buy those.
Okay, we got a project. I'm loving it. Okay, so now we're just finishing off this Parshat Chai Sarah. So Abraham takes another wife after Sarah dies. He has more kids.
At this point.
Well, so good question, because we see in chapter 25, verse 7, page 140, this was the total span of Abraham's life, 175 years. So
But
I
he
think
had
that
time to take more wives.
he did.
Yeah,
And so I think,
175.
you know, from like the ridiculous to the sublime, or maybe the other way around, I'm not sure, but I think, you know, the fact that Abraham has time in his life to take another wife and have all these other descendants, you know, indicates to me that Sarah, perhaps she really did die like an untimely death of a broken heart, because her son almost got killed by his father, also her husband. So it's like kind of sad, but I mean, you know, these are the things that happen. You know, the trauma and strife in human experience and in human families is a given. It's not something that any of us can really weasel our way out of. It's just part of what goes on sooner or later in whatever form. And so Abraham and Sarah, and Isaac and Rebecca, which we'll see in a moment, are not exempt from these moments of strife. So, okay.
But he was very careful when he set his other kids off to different areas, so they wouldn't be in Eretz Israel somewhere.
That's true. So yeah, so we see chapter 25, verses 5 and 6. Abraham willed all that he owned to Isaac, but to Abraham's sons by concubines, Abraham gave gifts while he was still living, and he sent them away from his son Isaac eastward to the land of the east. And so that includes Ishmael, you know, even though Ishmael is a little bit of a different status, I think, than these descendants of Keturah, because he was the first. He was circumcised, and you know, along with Abraham for the first time. Not that made Ishmael part of the descendants that became the Jewish people, but I think it's fair to say that Ishmael was, and actually Ishmael has a different. So if we look at chapter 25, verse 12. Through verses 12 through 18. So starting in verse 12, this is the line of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's slave, bore to Abraham. So Ishmael is identified as having a mother who was a slave, but also having Abraham be his father, and it's separate from the descendants of Keturah. So there's that. And so going back a little bit more and kind of wrapping up this parsha, okay, back to verse 7. We'll read it again. This was the total span of Abraham's life, 175 years. And Abraham breathed his last, dying at a good ripe age, old and contented, and he was gathered to his kin. Wow. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah, in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar the Hittite, facing Mamre, the field that Abraham had bought from the Hittites. There Abraham was buried, and Sarah his wife. After the death of Abraham, God blessed his son Isaac, and Isaac settled near the Arab Lahai Ro'i. So now, that's the changing of the guard. It's a generational shift. Yes.
I want to comment that
yes, please.
He was buried with by both sons. And as much as there's dissension within families, and this certainly the story tells it, I find it amazing And it's a lesson
Absolutely.
for families.
Yes,
where there's
absolutely.
disagreement.
Right. And I think that's true. And again, back to the descendants of Keturah, they weren't really part of that ritual moment, that funeral, in the same way. I mean, probably they were there, I imagine so, but I think that it is significant that this family that is separated in this major way is able to come together to honor a special person within the family, which doesn't always happen, but here it did. So it is beautiful. Yeah.
So we were in Hebron,
Ah.
and the cave was off limits in terms of researching, excavating, or documenting. So it's always been nobody wants to know, nobody can know. So mystery continues.
The mystery
continues on. Were they really buried?
I asked, I was much younger in that. I had the audacity to ask if it's ever been excavated. And
says her name on it.
She wrote,
Here lies Abraham and Sarah.
Has anybody ever really looked into this cave? And I was quickly shot down.
Yeah.
Oh, they don't talk about anything, but
Right. It's the relationship between history and archaeology and Torah is always complicated. It's always complicated because on the one hand, there's such a drive and a desire to like find these places because we know, and things that are a little bit more obvious, like the temple, the Holy Temple, like we know that was there. We know where the ruins are still there, but so finding every detail of these things is incredibly meaningful to many of us and not always the smooth process that the movie version would be, right? Where it's like, oh, in the movie version it's like it's right there, wow, it's like, but not so much in real life. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is Abraham and Sarah never speak after the Akedah, but they're buried together.
Absolutely.
So in eternity, they are together.
Right.
I heard
that. Right. So, and I mean, Sarah we don't know if Sarah was like, Abraham, I know it's been rough, but it's okay. Let's be buried together. Or if Abraham was just like, okay, time to make a decision, and so we don't really know either way.
Yeah, I paid for the plot.
Right. I already paid for the I've had my eye.
We already got the plots.
Right,
exactly. Do it
for this thing.
I mean, I put out 400 shekels.
Right.
Come on.
400 pieces of silver? Wow.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Are you kidding me?
Yes. Okay. So from funeral to birth, let's continue to Parshat Toldot, and we are moving right along. This is great.
Yay.
And so we're starting. So this is really what we're looking at today. What we have looked at already, and continuing to what we're looking at for the second half of class is really the story of generational shift. So we have Sarah dying, we have Abraham making his way through his experience as an elder, finding a wife for his son Isaac. The marriage happens, there is love, it is great, and now we have kids being born and things getting complicated. Okay, so we start on page 146, also known as chapter 25, verse 19. This is the story of Isaac, son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he took to wife Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Padan Aram, sister of Laban, the Aramean. Okay, so they're cousins, and Laban is also their cousin. Well, Laban is also Isaac's cousin and Rebekah's brother. Oh my gosh, you got to help me if I get any of these family relationships wrong.
I see how the whiteboard would have.
Yeah. Well, there are family trees. Maybe we'll look at that at some point. But yeah, this is like a little whiteboard moment. Okay. So Isaac pleaded with the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren, and the Lord responded to his plea, and his wife Rebekah conceived. But the children struggled in her womb, and she said, "If so, why do I exist?" She went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord answered her, "Two nations are in your womb. 2 separate people shall issue from your body. One people shall be mightier than the other, and the older shall serve the younger." So This is going to be completely straightforward as a family dynamic, obviously. Totally simple, no fighting. It's going to be great.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. When her time to give birth was at hand, there were twins in her womb. The first one emerged red like a hairy mantle all over, so they named him Esau. Then his brother emerged, holding on to the heel of Esau, so they named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when they were born.
Wow.
Okay, so
It took 20 years.
It took 20. It took 20 years. It took 20 years.
In
Exactly.
Torah numbers.
In Torah times, which like might be like dog years, but might not sure. It's a 20 of something.
Leap years.
20 leap years, 20 leap months. We don't know.
But there's a lot of fertility issues in the family.
Oh, absolutely.
family.
Yeah.
In our historical family.
Absolutely.
Because they married
Absolutely.
their first cousin.
Sarah and
Then there's that.
Rivka and
Mhm,
Rachel also.
Mhm. Mm-hmm.
Well, they had to
Not
call
so
on,
much Leah.
and they had to call on God
I
each
made it down
time
the line.
to push it along. there.
Absolutely. No,
Those
and you know, and even in modern times when situations are so different now than they were then, still fertility is one of those things that's like, you know, we have all this technology, we have all this and all this that, and there's never any guarantees. You know.
And then there
so-
was Hannah.
and then there was Hannah. Yes, absolutely. And then
Samuel.
there's Leah.
Later.
But that's later. Yeah, she
Yeah,
does
she
not have
was
fertility
very
issues.
fertile.
She has other issues. Everyone's got issues. Okay. So we have so in this parsha, two things happen with these two brothers, these two twin brothers, Jacob and Esau. One is regarding the birthright, and one is regarding the blessing. So let's read a little bit about the birthright. Okay, so chapter 25, verse 27. When the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the outdoors, but Jacob was a mild man who stayed in camp. Isaac favored Esau because he had a taste for games, but Rebekah favored Jacob. Okay, so one, playing favorites, always a great idea for parents. Not at all. But also, so we have this remembering Rebekah's personality, that when it was time to get married to this person, maybe she wanted to get away from her brother, maybe she wanted to have an adventure, whatever the reason was, she was like, let's do this. She didn't delay. I would fair to say Rebekah is a very decisive person. And so Rebekah favors Jacob. We're remembering this. Once when Jacob was cooking the stew, Esau came in from the open famished, and Esau said to Jacob, give me some of that red stuff to gulp down to bride famished, which is why he was named Edom, because basically he is the color red and he likes to eat things that are the color red. I don't know. It's like an interesting facet of the story. Jacob said, first, sell me your birthright. And Esau said, I am at the point of death, so of what use is my birthright to me? But Jacob said, swear it to me first. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Jacob then gave Esau bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank, and he rose and went away. Thus did Esau spurn the birthright.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I don't understand what that means about birthright.
Inheritance, extra inheritance, double portion.
Oh.
He was the first boy
Right,
born,
right.
therefore he has the birthright.
I see.
Yeah. What is this exactly? It's a little bit, especially because later we get to the blessing also, and is the birthright and the blessing, they're two different things, I guess, but where it's a little bit unclear.
Oh, but the blessing is the cherry on top.
The blessing is the blessing the cherry on top, or the essence? Like, I'm not entirely sure. They're both important, but this one this is like Jacob being tricky and Esau being stupid.
I was gonna say it too.
Yeah, I know. It's like we don't want to like speak too poorly of our ancestors, but come on, you know. So I think, and this happens between the two brothers without anyone involved. So those are the facets of this little moment. Yes.
Going back a little bit to verse 28, 29.
Please.
It says that Esau because of the game.
Yes.
But Rebekah loved Jacob.
And it doesn't
Why?
say why.
Is there any commentary as to?
Ooh, let's look at what we've got. Oh, so this commentary says no reason is given for her preference. Thanks. We noticed that.
But you know, in the original thing, she gets the vision or the prophecy that the younger will serve the older. So she's already has a preconception that this is the guy. This is the one.
Oh,
and number two, he's the kid. Esau's going out hunting, and she He's a mama's boy. Yeah, Jacob staying home with mama, doing the cooking and learning how to make stew.
Go back
So,
to 29.
He learned how to be a chef.
Go back below the line.
But the lack of parallelism is odd here, because you would think that's the way, the poetic way that much of the Bible is written, that there would be Jacob loved, or Isaac loved Esau for this, and Rebecca loved Jacob for that, and it just fits more with the style of drafted. So if you assume that everything is deliberate, then why commit that deliberately?
Well, I think, I don't know, kind of going back to what was said before, that another way of looking at it is that we don't have to we already have an explanation for why Rebecca favored Jacob. So the extra part was why the heck would Isaac favor Esau?
Because
He liked
hunting.
No, it says it here. Perhaps he raised Esau to do many of the things he had never been able to do when he was growing up, asking Esau to fill in the blank spaces in his own life, and he loved his physically gifted son
That's not the question
for
I was
being
asking.
what he had
The
never
question I was
done.
asking was why it doesn't say why Rebecca loved Jacob.
Oh, it says that too. God charges Rebecca with the responsibility of seeing to it that the covenant is entrusted to the more worthy, not necessarily the elder child. So she's feeling that Jacob, the more contemplative, quiet child, is
So
the more worthy.
backing up a couple of steps, both of these commentaries are the below the line commentary in the Eighth Chaim. And so I would say that in addition to what's already been said, I would say that the parallel structure doesn't actually always happen in Torah. Torah isn't as consistent as you're expecting it to be. Is another part of the answer that I would give.
I have a comment. I have two sons, by the way. And actually, what's interesting.
You're like context.
Yeah, what's interesting is this fits. Not that what I tell my sons is I love them different. I love them differently, but the same. And it's true that there's one I prefer to go shopping with, and that's Mark. I would never take Israel. It's the worst experience in my life. Only because he's OCD, but I mean, he's very it takes him 8 hours to go shopping. But that's why his father favors Israel. We're divorced, by the way, but that's either here nor there. Because he is more athletic. He does the sports that Israel does the sports his father didn't get to do, and he excelled at them. He doesn't play and everything that and so he has pushed him that way. Sometimes not to a good, but that's either here nor there. Anyways, this is and so it's not. I don't see love anywhere. I just see favored, and so maybe she favors him because he's more in common with her, like Mark is. And I don't. It's not. But I do have certain things like when I'm doing certain things, it's better to have Mark with me. It just works better. He enjoys it more. It's not that I'm saying. So when I say, "Hey, I'm going to go out and run these errands," Israel will just turn around as I'm talking. And Mark, he knows Mark, and so I don't. I do favor Mark to go do these things. So I think maybe because they in that she's not going out to work, and I don't believe I mean it's different all the stuff she has to do than what I do. So but there's all the same stuff too because I'm. But
in my book it doesn't say favor. In mine it says Isaac loved and Rebecca loved.
What's the Hebrew?
The Hebrew is love. Yeah.
Yeah, the Torah, this is favored,
and it was.
But it's a universal thing. It's a universal thing.
It is a universal
People that
thing.
have more than one child, they have different personalities.
You love them and the same amount, but you like hanging out with one.
It's true.
It's the same.
It's
As long as
true.
it's suppressed, then do you see as they go?
I could shop all day with Sarah. Jessica would turn around. She hates shopping.
It's not gender.
So I love this.
different.
Okay, so we've hit upon a universal theme. I want to keep moving us forward a little
Okay.
bit, but we'll come back to this little moment when we wrap up about the housekeeping. Okay, so the next section is entitled the Adventures of Isaac, and the thing that I want to point out in this is that okay, so chapter 26, verse 6. So Isaac stayed in Gerar. When the men of the place asked him about his wife, he said, "She is my sister," for he was afraid to say "my wife," thinking the men of the place might kill me on account of Rebecca, for she is beautiful. So this is definitely something that's going on in the culture, because Abraham did this twice with Sarah. Now Isaac is doing this with Rebecca. So fascinating. Yeah, I just wanted to point that out. And it's pretty much the same story every time, that it's like the man is powerful, the wife is beautiful, the other men are like, wow, this woman is beautiful. You know, it's like, okay, well, this woman is a little bit available, which makes the man a little bit more powerful, and then it's like, whoa, she's not available, and then it's like, okay, let's walk this one back. It's we hear that story appears essentially 3 different times.
So they don't go with the hospitality thing. They're
last week.
It's I mean like
a stretch.
They're not.
How far does hospitality go? I feel like we were talking about that last week.
Because we're meeting this twice with Abraham and now once with Isaac, and they have to do this whole sister bit 3 times now, because.
But it's not for the purpose of hospitality. It's for the purpose of getting ahead.
Yeah, no, I understand. What I'm saying is they're now being hosted, or they're
in a strange place, and they want to make sure things go well with the people that they're around.
And so these people look at them not guests.
No,
what are they?
So.
Sojourning.
Strangers. Yeah, exactly.
They're strangers, sojourning in their land.
Right.
So they look at anybody who comes into their land as prospective. What's the word? Not problems. What? Not captors. Can't think of the word. What?
Outsider.
An outsider, but someone to be attacked or
disrupt.
Well, it's different cultures, right, and different families and different communities, have different ways of dealing with people who are unfamiliar. And in this situation, the way that Abraham and Sarah and the way that Isaac and Rebecca are dealing with people being like, okay, you're unfamiliar, is like, let's tell this lie. Let's tell this lie so that things will go more smoothly until they get found out, and then they have to deal with it. So just interesting. Okay. So back to the comment that I was making about they're doing this to get ahead, meaning to prosper economically. Isaac, so chapter 26, verse 12, Isaac sowed in that land and reaped 100-fold the same year. The Lord blessed him, and the man grew richer and richer until he was very wealthy. He acquired flocks and herds and a large household, so the Philistines envied him. And then the Philistines stopped up all the wells, and he kind of had to deal with that, but he did, and it was fine. Okay. Moving on ahead.
Oh no.
Okay.
Esau's getting married.
So this is more of a story, and I think we'll kind of move through this, but Isaac is trying to work with the other people of the land to make sure that he's able to live there, have his business, do his things, not have his wells stopped up by people who are angry with him, and it works ultimately. The end. Okay. So okay, now I'm looking at the time. So let's go right to chapter 27, verse 1. Okay, so now this section of the story, the Eitz Chaim has a little heading on it that says Jacob deceitfully acquires the blessing. So now that Jacob has got the birthright, now he's about to get the blessing. Okay, chapter 27, verse 1. When Isaac was old and his eyes were too dim to see, he called his older son Esau and said to him, "My son." He answered, "Here I am." And he said, "I am old now and do not know how soon I may die. Take your gear, your quiver and bow, and go out into the open and hunt me some game." Then prepare a dish for me such as I like and bring it to me to eat so that I may give you my innermost blessing before I die. Rebecca had been listening. As Isaac said to his son Esau. When Esau had gone out into the open to hunt game to bring home, Rebecca said to her son Jacob, I overheard your father speaking to your brother Esau, saying, bring me some game, prepare a dish for me to eat, that I may bless you with the Lord's approval before I die. Now, my son, listen carefully as I instruct you. Go to the flock and fetch me 2 choice kids, and I will make of them a dish for your father, such as he likes. Then take it to your father to eat, in order that he may bless you before he dies. Jacob answered his mother Rebekah, but my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am smooth-skinned. If my father touches me, I shall appear to him as a trickster and bring upon myself a curse, not a blessing. But his mother said to him, your curse, my son, be upon me. Just do as I say and go fetch them for me. He got them and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared a dish such as his father liked. Wait, hold on. Let's go ahead. What are you saying? Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that he just listens to her as a grown man. That's another thing. There's a lot here that's worthy of
Absolutely. No, so we definitely want to take time for moments and for interrupting. So back to what we've been kind of saying throughout the whole class is that Rebecca, she's gonna go for it. That's her personality. It's like this is what needs to be done. And perhaps one of the reasons why Rebecca favors Jacob is that Rebecca's like, dude, do this. And Jacob's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Even if he's like, oh, okay. And maybe Esau would not be like, oh, sure, I'll go ahead. Like, I'll do that.
Those of us that have stubborn kids, the younger one is the one who's going to listen to you is easier.
Right.
It's easier.
Right. It's
and who's the trickster? It's Rebecca. Is the real trickster here.
But they're
but he does
story about the birthright. Yeah. Jacob is definitely the trickster.
Yeah.
But here, Rebecca is definitely being tricky. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, let's reading this word for word. It might take a little bit longer than we want it to take here. So let's look at verse 21, chapter 27, verse 21. Isaac said to Jacob, come closer that I may feel you, my son, whether you're really my son Esau or not. So Jacob drew close to his father Isaac, who felt him and wondered. The voice is the voice of Jacob, yet the hands are the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau, and so he blessed him. He was in some sort of disguised costume situation made of goat skin. He asked, are you really my son Esau? And when he said, I am, he said, serve me and let me eat of my son's game, that I may give you my innermost blessings. So he served him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. And then his father Isaac said to him, come close and kiss me, my son. And he went up and kissed him, and he smelled his clothes, because they were Esau's clothes. And he blessed him, saying, the smell of my son is like the smell of the fields that the Lord has blessed. And he gets the blessing. Moving on to verse 30, no sooner had Jacob left the presence of his father Isaac, after Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, that his brother Esau came back from the hunt. He too prepared a dish and brought it to his father. And he said to his father, let my father sit up and eat of his son's game, so that you may give me your innermost blessing. His father Isaac said to him, who are you? And he said, I'm your son, Esau, your firstborn. Isaac was seized with very violent trembling. Who was it then? He demanded, that hunted game and brought it to me. Moreover, I ate of it before you came, and I blessed him. Now he must remain blessed. No substitutions, exchanges, or refunds, people. Here's where we are. This is what happened.
Wow.
Yep.
You know what's amazing about this to me in the story? If Rebecca's favoring Jacob because she had the prophecy that he is to continue line, why did she go to Jacob and say, hey, I had this contact, this bishop said, actually, we need to give the blessing to. But to her, it was, I guess, more honorable or more direct to do the deception.
I don't
so
think
that's interesting.
Honor didn't enter this.
Well, I mean, I think that like those of us who have, partners or coworkers or family members or friends or relationships of any type, really, we have those moments where like, hey, other person, I have this completely reasonable idea that you should agree with. And they're like, nah.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? And they're like, nah, I don't think you.
It's hard for us to fully grasp in so many ways. But one thing, it's a different time.
Yeah,
and so it's a different paradigm. A wife would never question in it, presumably. The husband's about to give the blessing to eldest, and it's not her place, maybe.
But the whole thing earlier with Sarah arguing with Abraham, or Sarah having a different opinion than Abraham, because Sarah's like Ishmael and Hagar, they got to go.
Oh, that's true. So
that's
down
to go,
right there.
and Abraham's
So-
like, oh no.
So Rebecca, under that scenario, maybe she could have, but that's not the story.
But
so,
God says,
Not what
listen
happens.
to your wife, listen to Sarah.
but that is different than this story.
Yeah,
God doesn't show up in this story and tell Isaac really very much of anything.
It's
Which is interesting.
fascinating
Yes.
though, that we're distressed by the duplicity of these people.
Absolutely.
And yet these are our forebears.
Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely.
chronicled. Now, depending upon what one thinks about who wrote this.
that's the
But the
question.
fact that it's there, I mean, that's part of our DNA.
Yeah.
But don't you have, I mean, your antecedents, don't you think about what they're, I mean, I remember,
They were perfect, of course.
they weren't, mine weren't, and yours weren't, and that's my DNA, and I'm thinking, and
Blame her back.
Free will. We all
it's
have
free will.
free will. We can make the choice. Not we can fight our genetics. Multiple levels.
Well, they were different times, different cultures. I know that. I know you. Everything we say is true. Takes a lot of yin and yang to find the balance here.
Sure, absolutely. No, it's so this is the last thing I want to highlight in this. So we're almost at the end of the parsha. And okay, so this, all right, chapter 27, verse 41. I think that's really the piece. Let's look at that. Okay. Now Esau harbored a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing which his father had given him, obviously. And Esau said to himself, "Let but the mourning period of my father come, and I will kill my brother Jacob." So he's like, as soon as Isaac dies, he's gonna get it, And so when the words of the older son Esau were reported to Rebekah, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, Your brother Esau is consoling himself by planning to kill you. Now, my son, listen to me. Flee at once to Haran to my brother Lavan. Oh boy, here we go.
Yeah.
Stay with him a while until your brother's fury subsides, until your brother's anger against you subsides, and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will fetch you from there. Let me not lose you both in one day. So now Rebecca is in significant distress because of what's happening. And of course, as we know, Jacob is going to flee to Lavan, and the story will get much more complicated from there. Okay, so now any thoughts, comments, concerns, questions? We'll take about 2 or 3 minutes for that before we move into the housekeeping section. Yes.
Who told Rebecca the words that Esau said in his heart?
Who told Rebecca the words can you give me a chapter and verse so I can follow along?
Line 42.
Line 42, chapter 27, verse 42.
41 and 42.
When the words of her older son Esau were reported to Rebecca, well, I think, this is I appreciate the question and talking about a different culture, because we focus so much on just the main characters in these stories, but we forget that they have like massive amounts of land and massive amounts of animals. So there are people in the household that are taking care of that stuff. There's the amount of wealth in the form of land and animals that this family has, they need employees.
Kind of Yellowstone-ish.
I mentioned because you just said that,
Thank you, Kevin
God doesn't
Costner.
appear in the story. But if you don't assume that Esau was talking to other people, what the words say said it to himself, then somehow that message got to Rebecca through some kind of divine intervention.
Oh,
But it's not
okay.
stated here.
Okay, so that's an interpretation that the words of the holders and Esau were reported to Rebecca through divine intervention, interpretation, messenger,
Okay, so
With the
sharing the
footnote-
thought bubble.
Well, the footnote at the bottom, for 41, the Hebrew simply means that his mind was made up, not that he kept his thoughts to himself.
Which is a different interpretation. Yeah, because it could have been either way, but I'm even I'm thinking about this campus that we have, and it's like it's big. We can't just manage it with like one person. We need a staff of people to make sure that everything, that the security gates are maintained and that the guards are there on time and that like the restrooms get cleaned and the trash gets taken out. It's like, it's not just a couple of people who are doing that. It's a whole group of people. So it's like with their family. So I assume that people in the, people who see each other on the day to day, like in a family or a household or a workplace, they talk, and everyone talks a little bit more than they should sometimes, right?
Then it becomes a stylistic question again, because you could eliminate the ambiguity by just taking out the words in his heart, just saying Esau said, leave it at that.
What does the Hebrew say?
In
verse
but you
41.
got
here it says said to himself, yeah, not in his heart,
Well, it's-
said to himself. But I mean, if someone in your family, if there's a group and someone is really upset about something, you're gonna know that person unless they're very controlled. You're gonna know that person's upset.
Right.
And they're probably gonna be muttering or.
Right. But so back to the Hebrew, what I don't think the Yomer Esav Bilibo.
It's hard.
Yeah, to himself, or really in his heart, but the translation is he thought to himself.
Which is what it
He said to
essentially
himself,
is.
thought
In
to
Hebrew,
himself.
there's a word for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what this is.
all right, no, it just seems
Yeah,
odd.
that's
Feeling, it's more like his feeling.
Not exactly, because in the times of the Torah, we think of the brain as where the thoughts come from. They thought of the heart as where the thoughts come from. Yeah, which is interesting, because where do the thoughts come from? It's an interesting question. Okay, so that's kind of that's it for our learning this morning, but we're not done yet, because I wanted to talk about learning here in general. So it's March 3rd. I'm like, what's the date today? I forget, it's right here. So it's March, we're in the springtime. And so if you couldn't believe it, we're already starting to look at the 2024 to 2025 year and make some plans. Failing to plan is planning to fail, all that stuff. Like we're trying to like really get it, So I'm interested in knowing from all of the wonderful learners who are here and the wonderful learners who can't make it on Sunday mornings, things like that, what sorts of times, what sorts of topics, what sorts of styles are people interested in. Of course, I could just do what I like, and that hopefully will be fun for other people too. But I'm interested, the one thing that I know I don't know is people's schedules and availability. And I know that some people can't do Sundays. I know that it came up last week when we were speaking about Akedat Yitzchak, that there could be an opportunity to go more in depth with certain things, and I want to provide that opportunity. I've also been thinking about it since then, and realized that I'm a little bit more ideologically committed than I thought I was about this. That I think that big picture overview is kind of underrepresented in Jewish learning, and that's why I designed and planned this class to cover the entire book of Genesis. And like, yes, we are going to get to the end, even though we might miss some things in the middle. So thinking about, I definitely want to continue to teach from that perspective, but we want to make space for things other than that as well. So we'll kind of, I guess we'll like wrap it there, but we can take a few minutes for a discussion and brainstorming, or if people want to share.